Cunard liner Queen Mary, first set sail in 1936. Unfortunately, right now while I'm filming this, and hopefully that'll change soon, but right now, you can't even visit her. However, thanks to Tom at HistoBrick, you can own a miniature version of her. See, the Queen Mary behind me is 1,019 feet long. How would you like a 19-inch one, which is like that? Yes, you can, but it's going to be out of Lego, which is either a plus or minus for some of you out there. Tom actually sent me one of those kits, and we're going to be building that together in yet another installment of building HistoBrick kits. It's real Lego parts as always, and this kit has 1,138 specially hand-sorted parts. So why don't we take a seat? All right, here we are. Traveled across the country very quickly and lost a mustache along the way, all that wind resistance. Without further ado, let's begin building the RMS Queen Mary by HistoBrick. And after that, we're going to stick with the Southern California theme and build the SS Catalina, the steamer that serviced Catalina Island via Avalon throughout the 1940s and 50s, which will complement the HistoBrick Catalina Island Casino quite nicely. But that's later. First off, we're gonna build the Queen Mary. I've got my Queen Mary tea set here. Let's pour a quick cuppa, as they say. I hate when they say that. It's really annoying. Pour a quick cup. As we saw with the last kit, they come gift wrapped in brown paper, which I think is a nice professional old-fashioned touch. And then in that, we have this nice wooden big upgrade from the cardboard that we saw in the earlier kits. Really thick color instructions here. Oh, this is possibly the biggest kit we've done yet. It is over 200 steps. 204 steps to finish this kit. We're gonna be here all night. We've got some UV printed parts to really customize this. And again, all the pieces come in these drawstring bags. All right, we're gonna start in a second. I might need something stronger than tea. And as we saw with every other kit, a historical intro on the inside written by yours truly. So if there's anything wrong with it, you got me to blame, not them. We're building the length of the hull now. We have these orange and green bricks on the inside. I've seen these with a lot of kits, including previous HistoBricks, including other ones by other companies, and even official Lego ones. And the insides of these kits are always multicolored, and I don't know why. I get that they don't matter, obviously. The colors of the inside pieces don't matter, but why are we choosing orange and green right now? Is there a reason? Are they cheap parts? I don't know. But anyway, it's inconsequential. Step 2 of a million done. Oh, now we continue on in the same pattern as before. This is one tall ship. The Queen Mary really was an interesting vessel. She was the first ship built under Cunard White Star after they had merged. She was originally going to be built under Cunard alone when Cunard and White Star Line were still rivals, but the Great Depression hit, money ran out, and the ship was on pause for a few years. Cunard just didn't have the funds. They approached the British government for bailout, so did the White Star Line, and the British government essentially said, we're only going to bail you out if you two join together, join forces. They agreed. They got the funding to complete the Queen Mary. So she was designed as a Cunarder, but she flew the White Star Line flag as well, all the way up until 1950. What's interesting is the only reason Cunard is still around today and it's not the White Star Line is because Cunard brought a few more ships to that merger than the White Star Line did, which is unfortunate for the White Star Line because prior to the merger, White Star Line actually liquidated several of their ships, sent them over to scrap. They would have actually been the dominant party in that merger had they not done so, and then it probably would have been White Star Cunard until about 1950 or so, and then today it would still be the White Star Line. If you're interested in that, I actually have a video on my channel about the history of the White Star Line, and towards the end of it I talk about the merger. Right now we're working on building the side of the hull, giving it some details. We can already see that it's going to have some significant curvature. I've seen Lego kits of ships before, and they very often are just a straight line, straight along the sides, and then a rounded and pointed front and back. Whereas these kits, especially his more recent ones, really try to capture the true curvature along the way and how the hull tapers in very gradually from stem to stern. These kits are hand sorted, and I've seen photos posted by HistoBrick on how they do it, and they order all the parts, they come in the mail, and then I think they set out cups and then drop the right number into the cups, and then those get bagged up like this, and that's how they ship out. I can't imagine the tediousness of this. Unbelievable. I don't know how Lego themselves do it. I'm sure it's an entirely automated process, but before you could truly rely on machines for that stuff. On this step, on step 12, very early on, we actually have our very first UV printed part getting brought into the mix. It's a 1x3 flat white plate with windows printed on it. Now, it's important to follow the window pattern and pay attention to it because the ship had a distinct window pattern along the way. You want to make sure you put the right parts on and it's accurate, because the pieces will fit together and the windows will be wrong. I actually almost just put on the inverse of this piece where the windows were backwards, which is going to be this one on the other side of the ship. If you hear sewing in the other room, it's actually Emma making tablecloths for the Titanic Society of Atlantic Canada. The Titanic Society of Atlantic Canada is based out of Halifax, which is actually where the Cunard line was based out of for quite a while. I think they moved over to Liverpool around the turn of the last century, and one thing that's pretty neat is just a little anecdote, but for the birthday of the Cunard line, I forget which, but the most recent one, whatever year that was, the two queens that are still sailing sailed into Halifax. They did this big salute in the afternoon. Emma was there because she lived there at the time, and she had this beautiful view out her window of the salute with the two ships blasting their horns and riding through the harbor. But coincidentally, I was on board the Queen Mary 1 at the time, and she and I were FaceTiming each other. So in a way, it's almost as though the Queen Mary 1 was a part of that salute too. And the Queen Mary 1, back when it was a functional hotel, and hopefully it will be again soon, but back when it was 2 years ago when this happened, they blast their horn at like noon and 3 and 6, and they blasted that horn at the same time because I think it just fell on 3 o'clock. So it really kind of, through the FaceTime, it was like it participated. It was incredible. There we go. Don't know what this is, but there it is. I've noticed that with this kit, unlike the previous ones, we're starting above the waterline. Usually we start with the anti-fouling red below the waterline, but here, this time around, we're jumping right into the upper hull, the black and the white. I don't know why. I don't know if there's a reason for that. That was the bow. And it slides right in here. And it's going to sit like that. There's no actual connection. It says, a note right here, connects later in the process. Truly is a beautiful ship. And even as a hotel, it's beautiful to spend time aboard her. The restaurants, even just walking the hallways at night. Okay, we now have the bow of the upper hull attached. I think we're going to be jumping over to the other side now. Yes, we are. Okay, there we go. We've got the infrastructure of the bow finished. Now I think we're going to start adding the details along the way, including the nameplates of the ship. I've seen the bow here. We've built it just like we built the last Titanic kit, the most recent one, with the two sides of the forecastle hinging and then coming together to a point. It's a more accurate look for sure. It definitely captures more detail than the earlier forecastles of HistoBrick, but the hinge design doesn't seem to stay, and that's one of my only critiques. But that's me just being picky. It looks good, and if you're not playing with it, if you're not moving it around, it's going to stay, and it is going to look nice. Very early on, it's only step 57, and we're already putting in the masts and the cargo booms on the forecastle. I feel like I'm getting through this a lot quicker than normal. This is the one with the most steps. This is the most parts so far, and here we are. I feel like we've progressed a lot farther than we usually do. But again, I know that's because we've skipped the anti-fouling parts. Man, building the Queen Mary here and building the SS Catalina next, it makes me miss the West Coast. I'm fortunate enough that my job actually requires me to come out to California at least once a year. I do programming for, well, right now I'm doing programming for certain government contracts, so I have to go out and oversee some content development. So my company that I work for actually brings me out there. And I always am able to stay a little bit, explore, go out to Catalina, or go down to the Queen Mary when it was open. And I'm so fortunate to be able to do that, which is one of the reasons why I'm able to make so many videos out there and in the desert. But, oh man, just building the Queen Mary makes me want to get back there, makes me want to board that ship and explore it again and find some more undiscovered parts. As I was saying, I have a lot of fond memories on that ship and exploring it with friends, and I have on my channel again I have a video about the history of the Queen Mary, and it's mostly friends and I just walking around the ship and talking about the history. And I mean friends who actually like you'd want to hear from them. Ken Marshall, Bill Sauter, these are the people who you'd actually want to hear talking about the Queen Mary. And if you are interested in that, and if you haven't seen it already, it is available on my channel. It's called Historians Tour the Queen Mary. Alright, I don't like to open the bags until we have to. But now, it's time to spill out the last bag here. These are our red parts. Hopefully we won't be going too much into the red until the very end. I have a feeling we're going to complete the whole ship on the upper, above the waterline, and then go into the lower stuff. Funny little anecdote, I was driving home from Chicago about 2 years ago, and just in the middle of nowhere, and I was cutting across Ohio in the middle of nowhere, and I decided to stop into an antique shop, and I see behind the counter a postcard from the Queen Mary, and there's an older gentleman who is sitting at the counter, and he's got an accent, and I ask him, is that postcard for sale? And he says, no, it's not. Okay. I look around a little bit more, and I see another thing from the Queen Mary. I ask, is this for sale? He says, no, it's not. I'm like, well, okay, well, why do you have it here if you're not selling it? And he says, go, because it's mine. I was the ship's butcher. And he was only on it for the last 2 years of her service. But it was truly incredible. And then I sat down with him, pulled out the cameras, which I had in the car, and ended up interviewing him for over an hour. The promenades are being built entirely with these UV printed parts. So we have detailed glass looking windows the whole length. So we have the promenades done now, and the next step is to take all of these 2x1 transparent pieces and line the tops of the promenades. This could be railings, or it could be some sort of a clear layer that the lifeboats are going to be stacked on top of. Although the lifeboats on the Queen Mary were somewhat similar to the design on the SS United States, which is behind me, his HistoBrick version of that. We're just going to have to wait and see what this is. When I built the SS United States HistoBrick kit, I actually had the pleasure of being able to sit in the parking lot of the IKEA across the street from where the SS United States sits right now and build it there, much to the curiosity of shoppers driving by in the parking lot. But I would have loved to have been able to do that in front of the Queen Mary. So I got to film that intro, as you saw. But I wasn't lugging this kit out there, unfortunately. I had to travel light. The Queen Mary kit, and as well the SS United States, which we built earlier, they have the advantage because they're larger ships than the Titanic, or even the really small ones, such as the Carpathia kit that we did way back, Empress of Ireland even, and he has got the Great Eastern out now. Because of their size, you can get in there and have more detail. You have far more flexibility. You can add more parts to the deck. And you have to be far more impressionistic with the smaller kits. Now, granted, these bigger ships had more stuff on them, but you can have a more accurate facsimile built on top of it because you have more playroom. This is the forward part of A deck that we've just completed, and that is where the observation bar and lounge is on the ship, which is one of my favorite spots to hang out. There's this troublesome piece in the back here, this block of red that hangs down. Now, the instructions actually mentioned that as you're building and adding more things to the upper decks, it's probably best to overhang it off the side of a table so that you're not applying too much force in the middle when it's propped up by that piece and causing it to buckle. Alright, so we've just about finished the promenade deck. The boat deck is nearly completed as well. And then we're going on to the sun deck, which is this upper area, sport deck, I think might have actually been what it's called, the sports deck. There were tennis courts and racquetball, things like that up there. The bridge in the officers' quarters, which we're building right now, can actually still be explored in the Long Beach Hotel. The officers' quarters has a pretty neat display of how the captain's cabin would have been, and how they have a rack of uniforms hanging up in a closet. It's quite a nice display. And the bridge has been well kept. The brass has been polished. Definitely a highlight if you're there to visit. A must-see even if you're there just for a day. Speaking of, we have the bridge done now, with the wheelhouse windows placed right there at the front of it. And we're moving on to the vents, which are UV printed as well. With the vents done, we're making the lifeboats. Now we actually get to see how he has the lifeboats designed. And I happen to like how they're being done. We're taking two of these rounded, flat 1x1 whites, putting them back to back, and creating like a pill type thing. They're quite hard to get on straight and even, especially when you're holding the ship with one hand so it's in front of the camera. There we go, that's 26 lifeboats added. Alright, now we're moving on to the funnels. The funnels come in two options. You can do the orange siding, which is more accurate for the voyage, lifetime, when the ship was sailing, for the seagoing career of the ship. Or you can do red pieces like this, which is more accurate to the hotel right now in Long Beach. I remember that the color suggestion of orange actually came from Bill Sauter. I told him about this, and he said to make sure they go with the orange. Now, I don't know if Tom was already thinking of doing that, but he ended up making it optional so that you can have red if you want to build the hotel, or you can have orange if you want to build the ship as she was seagoing. I think that's a very nice way of handling it. Now you get to decide what you want to make. I'm going to go with orange because I prefer the ship in the more historical coloring. We've got the funnels on, and the upper structure is just about done. We have a couple more pieces to stick into the bottom to help it connect to the anti-fouling, and let's go ahead and do that right now. These protrude so far into the lower section and have studs on the side. I don't think this is going to have a detachable anti-fouling like all the previous kits. This might actually be built somewhat solidly onto it, but we'll see. I could be wrong. I gotta say, building this part upside down is difficult. So it's definitely correct that this is not built to have a detachable anti-fouling section. However, it's being built in such a way where it's not too difficult to remove it. It's just a few extra steps. So if you wanted to build this in such a way where it was just a waterline model, you could. All right, we have the forward section finished now. And I should note, because you can see this white stripe, it's optional. We're going to see this later in the instructions actually. The white stripe is optional. The parts are included for not having that white stripe there and just a solid red anti-fouling. So I'm going to be building it white. I've got the Queen Mary book of comparisons right here. I'm building it to match the book of comparisons. The promotional book printed when the ship began her career. In fact, a good number of these pictures have been enlarged and decorate the Chelsea Chowder House. So in short, you've got the funnel colors being optional and the white stripe being optional, which means in the end you're going to have a bunch of pieces left over for whichever option you didn't pick. When the Mary was serving as a troop ship, she was known as the Gray Ghost because she was painted all up in gray. And on the HistoBrick website, there actually is a Gray Ghost version of the Queen Mary. I don't think I'll be building it. I don't think I'll have the time. But it's well worth checking out. I think it's a nice model. It's probably going to be the same structure as this, but with different colored parts and perhaps the occasional modification on board that she had during wartime. For example, I think she had extra rafts throughout her. Right now we're building the underside of the stern, the propeller sections. A well-designed area I can see already in this kit, having built one side of the ship already. This is an improvement on some of the earlier kits I saw with the propeller shaft design. We've got the two propeller sections finished. We can stick them on the stern. As I said, I'm going to be going with the white stripe at the waterline. So it's time to add that now. So that's all these white flat plates that we see here. If you weren't doing this, there's all these red flat plates to go in their place. Sticking these sides in is a bit difficult because it has to snap in to horizontal studs and vertical studs at the same time. You just gotta push it in. Be careful not to break off stuff you've built elsewhere, like I'm breaking off these cargo booms. But just push it in, a little bit more effort going horizontal than vertical, and it should pop into place. This ship is quite beautiful. Let's see how she compares to our Titanic and her rival, the SS United States. So there they are, side by side. The Queen Mary was a holder of the Blue Riband, which was the award for the fastest crossing of the Atlantic. Eventually, it was taken by the SS United States, which still holds it today. I've got another video on my channel putting this together right in front of the actual SS United States in Philadelphia. This was a well thought out build. It had a lot going on.
It had a lot of odd parts being put into odd places, but I would not call this a difficult build. It was the longest build so far. This took me about 4 hours to make. I think the SS United States took about 3.5. And we have a ton of leftover parts too. So if you're looking for bonus pieces, this is an excellent kit to get. The UV printed parts are an excellent addition. They really make, especially the promenade deck and the vents, pop. It's always nice to see the name of the ship printed on the bow. There she is next to her book of comparisons. And I've built her in her sailing configuration.
You can get this kit at www.histobrick.com. And one last thing, if you haven't already, check out my other video of historians touring the Queen Mary. I don't include myself in those historians, but where I walk around the ship touring it with other historians, with genuine historians on the Queen Mary. Bill Sauter, Park Stevenson, Ken Marshall, and even fellow Queen Mary enthusiast who's right off camera, Eric Lara. Would have been great if we could have done that entire build right here in this parking lot, but I couldn't bring the kit out on the plane, unfortunately.
Now we're going to be building the second HistoBrick kit commissioned by the Catalina Island Museum. The first one was the Catalina Island Casino in Avalon, and this one now is the SS Catalina, one of the old steamboats that used to ferry passengers to and from the island. This kit is exclusive to the Catalina Island Museum. You can only get it on their website. It's not available on the HistoBrick website. It's 115 Lego elements. It comes with a color instruction book with a history written in the front. Usually I write the histories for these instructions, but this one was actually provided by the museum itself. I wrote a rough draft, sent it over to them, and they sort of took it from there and sculpted it a little bit further. There's also several colored postcards, which I pulled out of my collection and put into this. And Tom, the guy at HistoBrick, designed this kit from scratch specifically for the museum and put these instructions together. We just built the Queen Mary kit by HistoBrick. And there's some very interesting connections between the Queen Mary and the SS Catalina, which we're building. For one, they were both in Southern California at the same time, servicing the LA area. The SS Catalina was down there, I believe, until the 80s or 90s. We're on step 4, and this is a very important bit of advice. There's 2 different types of 1x2 plates with a single stud in the center. The difference being the back. There's a stud in the middle, and there's no stud in the middle on this one. For step 4, you want to use the one that has the stud in the middle, because you're going to specifically need that open space on the other one later. So the SS Catalina and the Queen Mary are both deeply ingrained in the Southern California maritime heritage. But they both served as troop transports during the Second World War, and they were both painted gray. Now, the SS Catalina actually served the San Francisco area and mainly transported troops to and from larger ships, serving more or less as a tender. Now, during the war, the Queen Mary earned the distinct honor of having carried the most people in a single crossing, and it was over 16,000 people. Now, the SS Catalina has a similar distinction. She holds the record for having carried the most people over her career, and that's somewhere around 25 million people who sailed aboard the Catalina in her career. Right now, what we're doing with these green and red blocks is we're building the backbone of the ship right now. The line that everything around it is basically going to be built off of and affixed to. So you won't see the green and the red when the ship is finally finished. So we're going to take this part that we've just assembled, and we're going to stick it onto the earlier piece, that white curving part. It should snap right into place. If it doesn't snap right into place, you may have missed the positioning of these 2 red arms. It's a little hard to make that clear on paper in 2 dimensions, but You'll know you have it right if it snaps perfectly into place like this. What we've built so far is the lower hull. You'll want to be certain that when you're placing these 1x2 white pieces in the hull here, you don't accidentally use this one, which has the printing on the forward end. This is going to be the wheelhouse up on the ship's bridge. The SS Catalina is a ship that has a lot of warm memories for people who remember going out to the island with their families and sailing into Avalon Harbor and seeing the kids jumping. And what they would do when the Catalina would arrive in Avalon, tourists would actually throw coins into the water, and kids on shore would dive in, and they'd dive deep down into the water, and 20 some feet or more, and pick up those coins. In fact, some kids would actually swim right under the boat, pop up the other side. So this boat that we're building is a very beloved vessel for those who have gone to Catalina Island. Unfortunately, it was a little bit before my time. I would have loved to have sailed aboard her, especially since she was still around, albeit as a wreck in Mexico. She was still visible up until a little more than a decade ago, I think. And then the wreck was scrapped. All right, so now working on the bridge, you see that we need the piece with the open bottom because it's going to go straddling across that front stud, and that's going to make the wings of the bridge. Moving on to the funnel now. And it's done. It's a nice little model, and I've even got some extra parts that came with mine. Perfect to go alongside the Catalina Island Casino, which is another exclusive of the Catalina Island Museum, which you can find on their website. You can find the two of these there. Purchase them. I think they make an excellent gift for anybody who has been to Avalon and Catalina Island and enjoys Legos or has kids or grandkids that love Legos and putting them together. I think one or both of these kits is an excellent gift for them. Now, just in case you're curious of how the SS Catalina compares to the RMS Queen Mary, which still sits in Long Beach right now, it's a fun build, but it's not a difficult build. It's not going to put anybody off. If you're new to Legos, this is a great place to start. It's a nice and easy, simple kit, but it's still quite accurate. Looks just like it, resembles it, manageable size. It's not a million parts, so you're not going to be sitting here getting frustrated. And it looks pretty good alongside the casino, which is also nearly the same amount of parts.